The first ever empire on which the sun never sets, the great discoverers, fearless conquistadors, Velázquez, El Greco, Murillo, the first who brought to Europe potato, corn, the name for chocolate, and of course the galleons which enriched Europe with overseas silver and gold, the great and powerful Spanish Empire which in the 16th and 17th century was the wealthiest and the most prominent empire in the world. However, having all the advantages provided by colonization process, it found itself declining and unable to hold this position and take advantage of the industrialization process which changed the balance of power in Europe, but that happened later. For now, let's go back to the late Middle Ages. Feudalism, Great Famine, Black Death. Where else? Oh, Christians killing all non-Christians in the name of God and forcing them to be baptized. Yeah, that's right. That is what happened on the Iberian Peninsula by the end of 15th century. As the time of domination by Muslim states were long gone, only weakened Emirate of Granada had left, which apparently was a pain in the ass for Castilian Queen Isabella and the King of Aragon, Ferdinand, who married in 1469, which later initiated a confederation of kingdoms which was the institutional basis for modern Spain. Right away they began to strengthen their power within their huge and fragmented state. They believed that religious unity was essential for political unity, so any religious dissent was seen as a threat to their power, so they requested a papal bull establishing an inquisition in 1478, which unlike papal inquisition was under their own control. Hey, what about that Emirate of Granada I talked about in the beginning? It's gone. The Catholic couple conquered it and said to all the Jews and Muslims, listen, either you convert to Christianity or
get out of here.
This pattern of expulsions of non-Christian population was repeated many times throughout Spanish history. The most numerous one was the expulsion of Moriscos, decreed by Philip III in 1609. As a result, it caused 300,000 Muslims to leave Spain. I would rather not rule at all than rule over heretics. How about that? And overall, those from Jewish and Muslim communities that actually chose to stay and embrace Christianity were never treated equally, to the extent that even such expression like limpieza de sangre emerged. Having clean blood was seen as a matter of honor, reflecting not only religious purity but also social standing. Families with supposedly untarnished Christian lineage were considered honorable and prestigious, and do not underestimate the concept of honor when it comes to the Habsburg Spain, but I'll get to that later. Now, Habsburgs.
And his name is
Charles V, Habsburg, probably the luckiest guy in the 16th century. Being the grandson of Ferdinand and Isabella, he inherited Castilian possessions, including those of South America, also Aragon, possessions of Aragon in southern Italy like Naples, Sicily and Sardinia. From his father Philip I Habsburg, Lord of the Netherlands and Duke of Burgundy, he respectively inherited Netherlands, Luxembourg and Burgundy. And additionally from his paternal grandfather he inherited Austria, which he later gave to his younger brother Ferdinand. And by the way, he was a Roman emperor. Well, at least he had that title, as he was elected the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire in 1519. But never forget what Uncle Ben said, with big power comes big responsibility. Thus, those huge and remote possessions of Habsburgs, which were spread all across the Western Europe, contained seeds of Spain's eventual decline, as they were sources of non-stop conflicts caused by both internal and external threats. One of those external threats was France. The French king Francis I, after losing to Charles on imperial elections for the title of Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, was outraged and preoccupied with the Habsburgs' possession that surrounded France all around. It turned into a series of wars mainly ongoing in the northern Italy but also in Netherlands and Navarre that have become a heavy burden on Habsburg's treasury. Often the only more or less justifiable reason to end one of those wars with France was the start of a new war caused by religious motives. Charles, as well as his heirs, presented himself as a faithful Catholic, the defender of Catholic faith. So can you imagine the scale of his outrage when within his domain a heretic named Martin Luther rebelled against the Catholic Church and the Pope? The worst thing about that is that his ideas actually resonated a lot in the hearts of many princes ruling the lands of Holy Roman Empire. This resulted in revolt in the Netherlands, which then evolved into general Northern European struggle that lasted more than 80 years and led to defeat of Spain and separation of 7 provinces in 1581. Despite many years of unofficial support for the rebels in Netherlands by English Queen Elizabeth I, wishing to avoid a head-on collision with Spain, she did not officially declare support. Nevertheless, it was an additional threat for Spaniards, which permanently attempted to make alliance with England, which increasingly followed the course of Reformation under reign of Elizabeth. It wasn't a threat yet for Spain, while Philip II Habsburg, the son of Charles, was married to her sister Queen Bloody Mary of England, who was an ardent Catholic. Therefore, it made Philip the prince consort of England. But unfortunately for Philip, actually for all three Philips, Mary died soon, and the Spanish Armada, which later meant to invade England, was sunk, which meant the establishment of English supremacy at sea and many defeats for Spain in the future. Protestants was, of course, terrible enemy for the furious Catholic rulers of Spain, but they can't compare with the historical enemy of Spanish Catholics they had the most troubles with since Reconquista: Muslims. The Ottoman Empire on its prime. Walking through the Balkans and sweeping everything on its path, the huge army of Ottomans approached Habsburg's possessions in Austria. They tried to capture Vienna in 1529, but it was nothing else than a miracle that their 120,000 army could not take the city defended by 20,000. Nevertheless, signing of a peace treaty between Holy Roman Empire and Ottomans meant that the Ottoman policy in Mediterranean is gonna be much more aggressive towards Aragonian and Castilian possessions of Charles, as the Ottoman troops engaged in the Danube Valley now must be used elsewhere. Between 1560 and 1573, intermittent but very expensive naval wars that followed the traditions of Charles V greatly complicated the European policies of his son Philip II. So as we see, although the reign of Charles and his son Philip in historiography gets name of a golden age, it involved Spain into many costly European conflicts for their distant lands, with basically every major European power on different periods, which obviously emptied the treasury a lot. Shortly after the death of Charles, Spanish monarchy defaulted on loans in 1557, 1516, 1575 and 1596. Even a tremendous amount of gold and silver from Americas could not prevent that. On contrary, it led to a huge increase of inflation due to growth of money supply, which led to increase in prices of domestically produced goods, which made them less competitive on international markets. The abundance of silver coming from America made it possible to repeatedly increase purchases abroad, so Spain served only as a channel through which gold and silver from South America arrived in Europe in order to enrich other countries. The situation became even more complicated, as often enterprising Spaniards looked for a better life overseas, which reduced peninsular Spain's population from over 8 million by the end of 16th century to less than 7 million by mid of 17th century. And the cherry on top of that was the growing strength of prejudice, of purity of blood, and passion for nobility and honor, which gave rise to disrespect for any work and led to the fact that in Spain they almost stopped engaging in mechanical professions. This passion for honor, however, was typical for every strata of population, even for the poorest ones, who were eager to show that they came from nobility class, even in 5th generation or 6th or so. These people were called hidalgo, or hijo de algo, literally the son of someone. The aristocracy and even kings spent a lot of money on luxurious receptions, meticulously followed the rules of etiquette, sometimes even to the point of madness, as some contemporaries wrote about Philip IV. He attached such importance to it that he acted and walked with the appearance of a living statue. Those close to him said that they when talked to him, he never changed his facial expression or posture. He took them, listened, and examined them with the same facial expression, and of all parts of his body, only his lips and tongue moved. The Habsburgs, wanting to preserve their wealth and possessions within their family, along all their history practiced incestuous intermarriages, which naturally resulted in health issues and genetic disorders. The most noticeable and fatal result of the phenomenon to the Spanish crown was the last Habsburg king of the Spain, Carlos II, with serious physical and mental disabilities, because of which he left no heir. That resulted in a war for the Spanish succession, when Spain seized the Spanish Netherlands, Naples, Milan, Sardinia and Sicily. Despite many successful reforms carried out by Bourbons who replaced Habsburgs, Spain never again had such influence, and by beginning of 20th century it completely lost all overseas colonies. The end.